little bit of time, not too much, just talking about withdrawing and terminating offers. So when we talked about offer or understanding what agreement is, we recognised early on that we have an offer that is matched with an acceptance that doesn't vary it in any way, that is communicated before the offer is withdrawn. If we have those two things, we have acceptance. So it's important, as we're working through an offer and acceptance analysis, to ask ourselves, has the offer been terminated, withdrawn, revoked, removed in some way? So, sorry?
The thing just came up on the screen. One of the students said that your voice was fading.
My voice is fading? Goodness me, that's something that... Let's see what I can do about that. Thank you. I suspect it will be better now because you're getting the same microphone that I'm using for the recording. Let's hope. Let me just have a look at the chat. Okay, give me a thumbs up, Nahida, if that's better or worse. That would be good, and I'll try and stand somewhere over here and look at it occasionally, which probably means I won't get video of me, but who cares, I say. There's enough going on. All right, so that word revoked. So just listen out for the technical language. The word revoked is effectively a synonym for withdrawn or terminated, but that's the technical language that we use. Where an offeror takes a step of some sort to cancel an offer. That's the revocation of the offer. Other ways that offers can disappear is as a consequence of a lapse of time. They might be rejected, which in turn creates a counter-offer. There could be a failure of a condition. So an offer might be conditional on something else happening, or the failure of some kind of conditional contract. So let's have a look at each of these different options here. So what I've tried to do, and I'm not planning to spend a lot of time on this, so I've got really wordy slides that will act as kind of summaries for you that you can then work from. So revocation, really other than in a very limited set of circumstances, if you are the offeror, you can withdraw your offer at any time. So the kinds of circumstances where you might not be able to withdraw your offer would be, they tend to fall in two different categories. Firstly is where a statute says that it would be unfair for you to do so, or would prohibit you from doing so, which would generally come down to fairness. So withdrawing an offer where it would be misleading or deceptive conduct would be impacted by the Australian Consumer Law, for example. The other is where you have a contractual obligation to keep your offer open. And that's effectively a type of contract which we would call an option, and we'll talk about those in a little bit of time. Revocation itself, we talked about this a little bit last on Saturday in the context of unilateral offers and the withdrawal of an offer to the world, say, my reward for you finding my lost dog. That I can withdraw that at any time, but I do need to communicate it. So when an offer is made to the whole world, the way that I can do that is effectively by using the same sort of channels that I used to communicate in the first place. So the Carbolic Smoke Ball Company, for example, could have withdrawn their offer, if that's what it was, and the court said it was, of 100 quid if you get a cold after using the product in accordance with its instructions, by putting an ad in the paper saying that they'd changed that. If I'm looking for my lost dog, I think it was, I sent Marius out to go and look for it at one stage, and the question would have been, did I communicate? If I'd asked Marius to do it specifically, then I would need to contact him and tell him I've withdrawn my offer. But if it was just a poster on a wall or a pole somewhere, I could take the posters down. That would be enough. By the way, just interrupt me if you're in the room with questions as you go. I'm hoping that you guys can hear online, can hear me a little bit better now. Please.
So if you had posters up and you take them down, that's enough. We don't have to actually communicate to anyone who's read the post.
Well, I've got to say, sorry, what's your name?
Holly.
Colleen.
Holly.
Holly. So Holly has just asked if is taking down the posters enough? Do you need to do anything else? The list of cases for lost dog poster failure to comply is pretty small. Like, I'd be surprised if there are any at all. So I have no absolute authority on this, but there are plenty of cases that deal with the withdrawal of an offer by removing it. So you could remove it from your website, for example, and that's enough. So I think really a website and a poll with a poster on it are pretty much like, that's the analog. The poll is the analog version of the website, right? So I see no issue with that. Yeah, you basically, if you can use the same means, you just need to do what's reasonable. If you actually had knowledge that people were running around and looking for it, particularly if you had knowledge that somebody had found your dog, and that you held them up while you raced around and pulled all the posters down, you might have a Section 18 problem. Okay. There we go. Lapse. Offers that are not time-bound will lapse after a reasonable time has expired. And offers that are time-bound, would you like to purchase this telephone for $100? I will accept an offer, or I will sell it to the first person who accepts my offer to do that before this class is finished. After the class is finished, my offer has expired. So what's a reasonable time? Again, it's an objective test. We go back to thinking about what would a reasonable person in a circumstance expect. So an offer to sell egg yolks, I think, would have a very small opening if they weren't frozen. Oh, frozen egg yolk is just a gross thought. One day, I've been doing this for years, but one day I'm going to sit down and write down analogies before I start instead of just picking something off the top of my head. Yeah, so if something that's going to deteriorate or disappear very quickly will have a different period of time, say, than an offer to sell gravel, which is basically not going to change in any particular way very quickly. Offers can also lapse if the offeror dies. Now, remember we talked about legal personality on Saturday? The person who physically makes the offer might be different from the offeror. So if a person who is representing the company dies and the company has made an offer, it is highly unlikely that the offer goes away. But if a human makes an offer and the human dies, the human is no longer capable of doing that. Now again, there are some little exceptions there. So for example, in Fong and Chile, that's a case where an offer was made to sell land. It was accepted before the person who accepted the offer knew that the offeror had died. And it was treated as, because the death hadn't been communicated, they were still, a contract had been made and they could sell the land. Now, of course, so the land still existed, and clearly, the estate wanted to do something else with it. That was the reason it became an issue. The one that comes up the most, I think, it can be quite tricky, is rejection. So by any rejection of an offer actually terminates the offer. And this is often a trick for young players in a commercial sense, because particularly when you have a complex commercial negotiation, everybody's sort of giving and taking it. So, I offer you that telephone for $100, and then you say to me, well, if I could purchase the telephone in 2 weeks' time, I could pay you $100, but if I need to take it today, I'm only prepared to pay $90. Now that's sort of a negotiation. It doesn't feel like you're rejecting the offer, does it? And depending on how you phrase it, if you're just requesting information, would I hold the offer open for 2 weeks? Would I be prepared to take the money in 2 weeks' time? Or if you are actually making a counter offer, will depend on whether the offer itself has been rejected. So again, this is why that language, that when we're talking about making an agreement, that an offer capable of acceptance on its terms without variation, that is pregnant with the intention and consideration and all of those other elements, plus acceptance that is communicated and doesn't vary the terms in any way, doesn't change the offer, equals agreement. And the reason we talk about doesn't change the offer in any way is because an acceptance which seeks to change the offer is a counter offer, and in fact a brand new offer. Now that doesn't mean that the person who made the original offer can't say, no, I reject your counter offer, but my original offer still stands. There's nothing to prevent them doing that, but there's also equally nothing to prevent them from saying, I reject your counter offer and I'm going to take my bat and ball and go home now. Which can be quite surprising for your clients at times because they're trying to push. Any of you working in commercial spheres at all? I've had a life full of clients who, as soon as the other side says yes, they start to second guess everything and think, oh, I must be leaving money on the table somewhere. Like, you know, clearly that's not a good enough deal. I said yes too quickly, and they want to change again, and they'll keep trying to move the goalposts. And I mentioned mere inquiry. So Stevenson, Jark and Co and McLean is a good authority and a good case for you to have a look at in relation to that, where somebody is just asking the question, okay, I'm interested in buying a phone. Would you be prepared to wait 2 weeks for the money? Is more likely to be a request for information than an attempt to vary the offer. Non-fulfilment of a condition can be a little bit confusing. So a condition precedent here, precedent in this context means, condition precedent here means before. A condition that is a precedent or a prerequisite to a contract being made. So we see these in all sorts of ways. I will sell this pallet load of hand sanitizer to you for $100 a kilo, provided that there isn't a national state of emergency declared. So it's kind of double. So the condition precedent is that there's no state of emergency, or that there's no law imposed that will prevent me selling a pallet load of hand sanitizer. Condition subsequent usually is something that will impact the agreement once it's made. So an external event that will actually end the contract. So I will supply you with all of the hand sanitizer I can get my hands on, unless there's a government decree that requires me to sell it only to hospitals, or unless there is a rule that prevents me from doing it. So again, they could have the same sort of impact. Can you remind me of your name? Steph.
Yeah. Does the condition subsequent affect the offer or the contract?
Does the condition subsequent affect the offer or the contract? Usually the contract, but a condition subsequent might actually impact, say, the time period under which an offer might be left open, and mean that that offer automatically ends even if the time period hasn't ended. But we'll talk about options in a minute. There's nothing to stop somebody, even if they've got an open time period, other than legislation, to say, even though I said I'd hold it open for 7 days, I'm going to bring it short.